Shri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaha. Srimad Bhagavat Gita, Chapter 18, Moksha Sanyaasa Yoga. Arjuna said, O mighty armed Sri Krishna, O inner controller of all, O slayer of Keshi, I wish to know severally the truth of Sanyaasa as also of Tyaga. Sri Bhagavan said, some sages understand Sannyasa as the giving up of all actions motivated by desire, and the wise declare that Tyaga consists in relinquishing the fruit of all actions. Some wise men declare that all actions contain a measure of evil and are therefore worth giving up, while others say that acts of sacrifice, charity and penance are not to be given up. Of Sannyasa and Tyaga, first, hear my conclusion on the subject of renunciation. Arjuna, for renunciation, O tiger among men, has been declared to be of three kinds: Sattvika, Rajasika and Tamasika. Acts of sacrifice, charity, penance are all not worth giving up. They must be performed. For sacrifice, charity and penance, all these are purifiers of wise men. Hence, these acts of sacrifice, charity and penance, and all other acts of duty too, must be performed without attachment and expectation of reward. This is my well-considered and supreme verdict, Arjuna. Prohibited acts and those that are motivated by desire should no doubt be given up. But it is not advisable to abandon a prescribed duty. Such abandonment through ignorance has been declared as tamasika. Should anyone give up his duties for fear of physical strain, thinking that all actions are verily painful, practicing such rajasika form of renunciation, he does not reap the fruit of renunciation. A prescribed duty which is performed simply because it has to be performed, giving up attachment and fruit, that alone has been recognized as the sattvika form of renunciation. He who has neither aversion for action which is leading to bondage, nor attachment to that which is conducive to blessedness, imbued with the quality of goodness, he has all his doubts resolved, he is intelligent and a man of true renunciation. Since all actions cannot be given up in their entirety by anyone possessing a body, he alone who renounces the fruit of actions is called a man of renunciation. Agreeable, disagreeable and mixed threefold indeed is the fruit that accrues after death from the actions of the unrenouncing. But there is none whatsoever for those who have renounced. In the branch of learning known as Sankhya, which prescribes means for neutralizing all actions, the 5 factors have been mentioned as contributory to accomplishment of all actions. Know them all from me, Arjuna. The following are the factors operating towards the accomplishment of actions, namely the body and the doer, the organs of different kinds, and the different functions of manifold kinds, and the 5th is daiva or destiny. These 5 are contributory causes of whatever actions, right or wrong, man performs with the mind, speech, and body. Notwithstanding this, however, he who having an impure mind regards the absolute taintless self alone as the doer, that man of perverse understanding does not view aright. He whose mind is free from the sense of doership and whose reason is not affected by worldly objects and activities does not really kill, even having killed all these people, nor does any sin accrue to him. The knower, knowledge, and the object of knowledge, these three motivate action. Even so, the doer, the organs, and activity, these are the three constituents of action. In the branch of knowledge dealing with the gunas or modes of Prakriti, knowledge and action as well as the doer have been declared to be of three kinds according to the guna which predominates in each. Hear them too duly from me. That by which man perceives one imperishable divine existence as undivided and equally present in all individual beings, know that knowledge to be sattvika. The knowledge by which man cognizes many existences of various kinds as apart from one another in all beings, know that knowledge to be rajasika. Again, that knowledge which clings to one body as if it were the whole and which is irrational, has no real grasp of truth and is trivial, has been declared as tamasika. That action which is ordained by the scriptures and is not accompanied by the sense of doership and has been done without any partiality or prejudice by one who seeks no return is called sattvika. That action, however, which involves much strain and is performed by one who seeks enjoyments or by a man full of egotism, has been spoken of as rajasika. That action which is undertaken through sheer ignorance without regard to consequences or loss to oneself, injury to others and one's own resourcefulness is declared as tamasika. Free from attachment, unegoistic, endowed with firmness and zeal, and unswayed by success and failure, such a doer is called sattvika. The doer who is full of attachment, seeks the fruit of actions and is greedy, and who is oppressive by nature and of impure conduct and is affected by the joy and sorrow has been called rajasika. Lacking piety and self-control, uncultured, arrogant, deceitful, inclined to rob others of their livelihood, slothful, despondent, and procrastinating, such a doer is called tamasika. Now here Arjuna, the threefold division based on the predominance of each guna of understanding and firmness, which I shall explain in detail one by one. The intellect which correctly determines the paths of activity and renunciation, what ought to be done and what should not be done, what is fear and what is fearlessness, and what is bondage and what is liberation, that intellect is sattvika. The intellect by which man does not truly perceive what is dharma and what is adharma, what ought to be done and what should not be done, that intellect is called rajasika. The intellect which imagines even adharma to be dharma and sees all other things upside down, wrapped up in ignorance, that intellect is tamasika, Arjuna. The unwavering firmness by which man controls through the yoga of meditation the functions of the mind, the vital airs, and the senses, that firmness, Arjuna, is sattvika. The firmness, however, by which the man seeking a reward for his actions clutches with extreme fondness virtues, earthly possessions and worldly enjoyments, that firmness is said to be rajasika, Arjuna. The firmness by which an evil-minded person does not give up the sleep, fear, anxiety, sorrow, and vanity vanity as well, that firmness is tamasika. Now hear from me the threefold joy too, that in which the striver finds enjoyment through practice of adoration, meditation, and service to God, etc., and whereby he reaches the end of sorrow. Such a joy, though appearing as poison in the beginning, tastes like nectar in the end. Hence that joy, born as it is of the placidity of the mind, brought about by meditation on God has been declared as sattvika. The delight which follows from the contact of the senses with their objects is eventually poison-like. Though appearing at first as nectar, hence it has been spoken of as rajasika. That which stupefies the self during its enjoyment as well as in the end, derived from sleep, indolence, and obstinate error, such delight has been called tamasika. There is no being on earth or even among the gods in heaven or anywhere else who is free from these three gunas born of Prakriti. The duties of the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, as well as of the Sudras have been assigned according to their inborn qualities, Arjuna. Subjugation of mind and the senses, enduring hardships for the discharge of one's sacred obligation, external and internal purity, forgiving the faults of others, straightness of mind, senses and behavior, belief in the Vedas and other scriptures, God and life after death, etc., study and teaching of the Vedas and other scriptures, and realization of the truth relating to God, all these constitute the natural duties of a Brahmana. Heroism, fearlessness, firmness, diligence, and dauntlessness in the battle, bestowing gifts, and lordliness, all these constitute the natural duty of a Kshatriya. Agriculture, rearing of cows, and honest exchange of merchandise, these constitute the natural duty of a Vaishya. And service of the other classes is the natural duty even of a Sudra. Keenly devoted to his own natural duty, man attains the highest perfection in the shape of God realization. Here the mode of performance whereby the man engaged in his inborn duty reaches that highest consummation. By worshipping him from whom all beings come into being and by whom the whole universe is pervaded, through the performance of his own natural duties, man attains the highest perfection. Better is one's own duty, though devoid of merit, than the duty of another well performed. For performing the duty ordained by his own nature, man does not incur sin. Therefore, Arjuna, one should not relinquish one's innate duty, even though it has a measure of evil, for all undertakings are beset by some evil, as is the fire covered by smoke. He whose intellect is unattached everywhere, whose thirst for enjoyment has altogether disappeared, and who has subdued his mind, reaches through Sankhya Yoga, the path of knowledge, the consummation of actionlessness. Arjuna, know from me only briefly the process through which man, having attained actionlessness, which is the highest consummation of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, reaches Brahman. Endowed with an untarnished intellect and partaking of a light, sattvika and regulated diet, living in a lonely and undefiled place, having rejected sound and other objects of sense, having controlled the mind, speech and body by restraining the mind and senses through firmness of a sattvika type, taking a resolute stand on dispassion after having completely got rid of attraction and aversion and remaining ever devoted to the yoga of meditation, having given up egotism, violence, arrogance, lust, anger, and luxuries, devoid of the feeling of muum and tranquil of heart, such a man becomes qualified for oneness with Brahman, who is truth, consciousness, and bliss. Established in identity with Brahman, who is truth, consciousness, and bliss solidified, and cheerful in mind, the Sankhya Yogi no longer grieves nor craves for anything, the same to all beings, such a yogi attains supreme devotion to me. Though that supreme devotion comes to, through that supreme devotion, he comes to know me in reality, what and who I am, and thereby knowing me truly, he forthwith merges into my being. The Karma Yogi, however, who depends on me, attains by my grace the eternal, imperishable state, even though performing all actions. Mentally dedicating all your actions to me and taking recourse to yoga in the form of even-mindedness, be solely devoted to me and constantly fix your mind on me. With your mind thus devoted to me, you shall overcome all difficulties by my grace. But if from self-conceit you do not care to listen to me, you will be lost. If taking your stand on egotism you think I will not fight, vain is this resolve of yours. Nature will drive you to the act. That action too which you are not willing to undertake through ignorance, you will perforce perform, bound by your own duty, born of your nature. Arjuna, God abides in the heart of all creatures, causing them to revolve according to their karma by his elusive power, Maya, as though mounted on a machine. Take refuge in him alone with all your beings, Arjuna. By his mere grace, you will attain supreme peace and eternal abode. Thus, has this wisdom more profound than all profundities been imparted to you by me, deeply pondering over it? Now do as you like. Here again, my supremely profound words, the most esoteric of all truth, as you are extremely dear to me, therefore I shall give you this salutary advice for your own good. Give your mind to me, be devoted to me, worship me and bow to me. Do so, you will come to me alone. I truly promise you, for you are exceptionally dear to me. Resigning all your duties to me, the all-powerful and all-supporting Lord, take refuge in me alone. I shall absolve you of all sins, worry not. This secret gospel of the Gita should never be imparted to a man who lacks in austerity, nor to him who is wanting in devotion, nor even to him who is not willing to hear, and in no case to him who finds fault with me. He who, offering the highest love to me, preaches the most profound gospel of the Gita among my devotees, shall come to me alone, and there is no doubt about it. Among men there is none who does me a more loving service than he, nor shall anyone be dearer to me on the entire globe than he. Whosoever studies this sacred dialogue of ours in the form of the Gita, by him too shall I be worshipped with yajna of knowledge. Such is my conviction. The man who listens to the holy Gita with reverence, being free from malice, he too, liberated from sin, shall reach the propitious words of the pious and righteousness. Have you, O Arjuna, heard this gospel of the Gita attentively? And has your delusion born of ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjaya, conqueror of riches? Arjuna said, Krishna, by your grace, my delusion has been destroyed, and I have gained wisdom. I am free of all doubt. I shall do your bidding. Sanjaya said, Thus I heard the mysterious and thrilling conversation between Sri Krishna and the high-souled Arjuna, O son of Kunti. Having been blessed with the divine vision by the grace of Sri Vyasa, I heard in person this supremely esoteric gospel from the Lord of Yoga, Sri Krishna himself, imparting it to Arjuna. Remembering over and over that sacred and mystic conversation between Bhagavan Sri Krishna and Arjuna, O king, I rejoice again and yet again, remembering also again and again that most wonderful form of Sri Krishna. Great is my wonder, and I rejoice over and over again. Wherever there is Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, and wherever there is Arjuna, the wielder of the Gandiva bow, goodness, victory, glory, and the unfailing righteousness will surely be there. Such is my conviction. Thus, in the Upanishad sung by the Lord, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna ends the 18th chapter entitled The Yoga of Liberation Through the Path of Knowledge and Self-Surrender. The glories of 18th chapter of the Bhagavat Gita from the Padma Purana. Parvati said, My dear husband, you have told me the glories of the 17th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita. Now kindly relate the glories of the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita. Lord Shiva said, O daughter of Himalayas, please listen to the glories of the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita, which is higher than the Vedas and the giver of unlimited bliss. When it enters into one's ears, it destroys all material desires. For the pure devotee, it is divine nectar. It is Lord Vishnu's very life, and it is a solace to the hearts of Lord Indra and the demigods, as well as the great yogis headed by Sanaka and Sananda. One who recites it sends the messengers of Yamaraja far away. There is no other recitation which can so quickly destroy all sin and free one from the threefold miseries of this world. Now listen with great devotion. On the topmost peak of Mount Meru is Amaravati, which was built by Vishwakarma. In that heavenly kingdom, Lord Indra, along with his wife Sachi, is served by the demigods. One day, while Lord Indra was sitting peacefully, he saw that one very beautiful person had arrived there, whom the servants of Lord Vishnu were serving. When Lord Indra saw that beautiful young person, he immediately fell from his throne onto the ground. At that time, those demigods who had been worshipping Indra picked up the crown that he was wearing and placed it on the head of that new beautiful person. After that, all the demigods and other denizens of the heavenly planets started to perform arati and sing wonderful songs to that new king Indra. The great rishis came there and offered their blessings and chanted Vedic mantras, and the Gandharvas and Apsaras started to sing and dance joyfully. In this way, the new Indra, who had not performed the usual 100 horse sacrifices, started to enjoy hundreds of different types of services rendered by the demigods and other denizens of the heavenly planets. When the old Indra saw this, he became very surprised. He started to think to himself, this person here has never built wells or dug kunds or planted trees for the welfare of others. And when there were droughts, he did not provide grains in charity. He never performed any fire sacrifices or great charities in the holy places. So, how has he managed to attain my seat? The old Indra, feeling greatly disturbed in his mind, left to the ocean of milk to pray to Lord Vishnu. When he managed to obtain darshan of Lord Vishnu, he asked him, My dear Lord Vishnu, in the past I performed many sacrifices and other pious activities for which I was installed as the Lord of heaven. But at this time, another person has come there and taken my place as the king of heaven. This person in his life never performed any great, wonderful, pious activities, nor had he performed any great Vedic sacrifices. So, how is it possible that he has managed to obtain my throne? At that time, Lord Vishnu said, My dear Indra, that great soul has performed the recitation daily of the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita. Every day during his life, he recited 5 slokas from this chapter, and because of that activity, he has attained the results of all sorts of pious activities and yajnas, and after enjoying for many years as the king of heaven, he will attain my personal abode. If you perform the same activity of reciting the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita, you can also attain my divine abode. After hearing Lord Vishnu's words, Lord Indra took the form of a Brahmana and went to the bank of Godavari river, where he saw the town of Kaleghrani, which is very sacred. At that place, the Supreme Lord in his form known as Kaleshwar resides. Close to this town, on the bank of the Godavari river, one very pure Brahmana was sitting, who was very merciful and had understood the topmost goal and secret of the Vedic literatures. Daily he would sit at that spot and recite slokas of the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita. When Lord Indra saw him, he became very happy. He immediately fell at his lotus feet and requested him to teach him the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita. After Lord Indra had practiced the recitation of the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita, for some time he managed to attain the topmost place of Vishnu Loka. When he attained that place, he realized that the pleasure he had enjoyed as King Indra along with the demigods was nothing in comparison. My dear Parvati, for this reason, the great sages especially chant this 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Gita, and by so doing very quickly attain the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Anyone who hears or studies this Gita Mahathmiyam very quickly destroys all sins which he has accumulated. And that person who remembers this discourse with great faith attains the results of all kinds of pious activities and great sacrifices, and after enjoying all worldly opulence, he attains the abode of Lord Vishnu. This concludes the 18th chapter and Srimad Bhagavat Gita as a whole. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Shri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaha. Shri Krishna 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 Krishna